Hey guys, happy Sunday. Welcome back. In today's video, we'll be covering the latest updates with Bitcoin price action. We'll be doing a deep dive technical analysis of Bitcoin strategy and the Bitcoin miners, what my price prediction is. How high can Bitcoin really go up in this cycle? Will it be 150,000? Will it be 200, 250,000? We'll be covering all of those updates. And what does that mean for these Bitcoin hedge companies like Strategy and the big three Bitcoin miners? I will cover all of those updates. Stay tuned. Let's dive deep. If you're new to this channel, I would really appreciate hitting the like, subscribing for more related content. Let's begin, guys. We're looking at technical analysis of Bitcoin. We're looking at the daily charts. One of the key things is we see very nice upward movement since April, especially when there was a huge drawdown over the last several months with Bitcoin consolidating. A lot of people were, selling off Bitcoin, those who didn't really believe in Bitcoin. However, with this downward pressure, these dips are really gifts. I hope, you all took advantage. Dollar cost averaging. Bitcoin is here to stay. Based on the technicals, what we're seeing is, the overall Ichimoku cloud is represented here, where we see price action being heavily pulled down from the Ichimoku cloud. You see, anytime when the price action is below the Ichimoku cloud, there's huge drawdowns. However, we saw that reversal pattern where price of Bitcoin broke through that Ichimoku cloud. What happened? Anytime when you see reversal patterns with MACD reversing relative strength at like oversold situations, that's where we will see it flip the switch and we can see it just rocket launch through this really gravitational pull down of the Ichimoku cloud. I tend to think of the Ichimoku cloud as anytime when the price is below the cloud, think of it as like a heavy red storm cloud, grabbing an umbrella and waiting for sunnier skies. But when we see price action breaking out of this heavy cloud where you have the green cloud, that's where, you have the clear sky ahead where it's going to be sunshine and rainbows. And that's what we're seeing with Bitcoin price currently on the daily chart, hovering above the Ichimoku cloud. That's what we want to see, having that trend momentum and support resistance. This is really in favor for the bulls taking action. So key thing is we're above the Ichimoku cloud on the daily. What does that mean when we look at the hourly chart? However, price of Bitcoin on the hourly chart, we were sunshine and rainbows until it got back into this red cloud where now, we have rainier days. And what does that mean? Are we going to continue to see it, be, going down? Key thing is we want to see it break out of this Ichimoku cloud. Again, this is on the hourly candle, so anything can really happen. We see it flip the switch through multiple occurrences, like on the 19th through the 21st. So just to keep in mind, we see a lot more reversals on the hourly candle. But key thing is we may very well break out of this. I think there's just some slight pullback, especially after the run up to 112,000. This is normal. But I think as we're headed towards, the time with the Bitcoin conference in Vegas, right now at currently at 107,000. This is definitely some nice healthy consolidation before the next leg up. I think as we head into like September timeframe, Bitcoin price can very well do a 1x from where we are right now into that $200,000 range. Let's take a look at technical analysis of strategy. We're looking at the daily candles. So key thing is that yes, while we see, the price point getting down to that 220, this was around that time when the relative strength was at, 20 RSI or below, representing a huge oversold situation, especially since that run up top November when it went up to like 540. What happened since then? It's been stuck in this bull flag for many months consolidating, and then what happened since April 8th when we had RSI at like, 20 or below. That's where we saw that reversal pattern. MACD started changing where we saw bullish divergence indicators. We saw on the daily, chart, with this red cloud, price action, it was just hovering below that Ichimoku cloud. It was just getting pulled down by that gravitational pull down. But since April, we broke through those clouds, correlating with Bitcoin breaking out of that cloud as well. And now we're in that leading phase, price discovery phase. We retested that prior resistance of like 430, and now, most of you are wondering, are we beginning to see strategy pulling back and how low can it go? I think especially since we went like 100% since that low point support of like, 220. This is healthy in that we went from like 200 to 400. So I do foresee that we're just going to have a nice healthy consolidation accumulation time point here, but I wouldn't worry because we're still above the Ichimoku cloud when you look at it through the lens of technical analysis. So definitely some huge upside, especially after going up like 100%. MSTR year to date has outperformed, Bitcoin when you look at it through just the month to month comparison. So don't look at it through like week to week comparison. We went from like, 200 to 400 within a matter of like couple weeks. So this is just normal, healthy consolidation. I wouldn't worry too much. Strategy is here to stay. We're above the technical indicators. So I do think that as we head into September timeframe, this is where we're going to really see some big, green candles coming for strategy. Looking at the weekly chart, one of the key things I want to point out is the MACD. We're beginning to see that big green sine wave coming, especially after that big bear cycle of like, many months since November of last year. That was like almost like, half a year where we were in that bear phase cycle. So this is definitely a normal distribution. We're seeing on the weekly candle, we're still bullish. We're above that Ichimoku cloud. We're taking charge right now. Strategy is getting bought by governments, financial institutions, you name it. I think that, strategy is going to rocket launch from here on out. Let's talk about the big three Bitcoin miners. So we're looking at the weekly charts of Mara, Riot, and CleanSpark. So definitely very similar performance. We see Mara performing, breaking out of that bull flag. We also see Riot and CleanSpark also breaking out of that bull flag after huge heavy market manipulation since November timeframe. It's been just going down for like half a year now. But what goes down very fast can shoot up very fast. We're also seeing that, on the weekly MACD is beginning to see that intersection point. This is a healthy indicator representing a reversal pattern. We're seeing bullish engulf pattern be created. Relative strength oversold is now flipping, where we're beginning to see more confidence from traders, seeing that the bulls are in favor, shorts are covering. And, even though we still see that we're below that Ichimoku cloud on the weekly, when you look at it on the daily chart, though, we see that, Mara, Riot, CleanSpark broke out of that Ichimoku cloud on the daily candles. What does that mean? Since that run up top, since that big drawdown with like Mara, Riot, CleanSpark, Mara went down to like high nines, Riot, CleanSpark to like high six. We're seeing CleanSpark, hovering close to that double digit range. Mara around that 16, currently 14. Riot, even broke out of that $9 range. But going from like 6 to 9, that heavy run up that broke out of the cloud, that gives us an indicator that we're in this, this short-term bullish phase reversal pattern, especially after huge, sell-off, relative strength, hugely oversold. MACD's beginning to pick up. We see that reversal pattern. What does that mean on the weekly? We're beginning to see the weekly also transition as well. So we're in that early phase as we look at it from a long-term perspective. I do foresee that on the daily, the fact that we're breaking out of that, that heavy gravitational cloud, we're eventually going to see on the weekly charts, we're going to climb up, getting out of that cloud, just based on the technical analysis. So where I really see Bitcoin strategy and the big three Bitcoin miners, I see Bitcoin getting to 200,000. I see strategy as we head towards that, that September timeframe of, this year around that early Q4. We may very well get to that 1,000 range as Bitcoin, reaches new price discovery. And the big three Bitcoin miners, I foresee that, with, Mara, Riot, CleanSpark, we could very well see a rocket launch 3 to 5x, on a conservative level. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what your thoughts are. Thank you.